Hello from Puerto Vallarta. I'm Tim, and this is my 1972 Islander 36, named Intrepid. And yes, many people recognize this boat as being the same Intrepid that in 2009 young Zach Sutherland used to circumnavigate the world. He became the first kid under 18 to do so by himself. I mention that because so many people recognize the boat and immediately refer to it as Zach's boat. So I guess it's Zach's boat. Why should I change? Anyways, let me give you a tour. A lot of people are all interested in seeing it, so let me show it to you. So again, Intrepid is 36 feet long. It's an Islander 36 built in 1972. I guess one of the advantages is back in the day when resin was cheap and they used a whole buttload of fiberglass. Some of the areas in the hull in this boat are close to 1.25 inches thick. Its length of water line is about 29 feet. Breadth about 11'2", weighs in about 13,500 pounds. It's a fin keel boat. It has a 5,500 pound lead keel, and it has a rudder on skeg, so it's not a free hanging rudder. It has a skeg in front that the rudder is attached to protect the rudder. One of the bad parts about the boat is because of the skeg, the engine itself, the propeller, is offset slightly starboard. So it's not in line with the center line of the boat. It makes backing up a real pain in the behind. Anyway, starting from the bow, it does have a 20 kilo Ultrex anchor. Pretty cool little anchor because it always seems to right itself. Now in addition to that, it has 300 feet of 5/16 chain, and I installed this Maxwell windlass and a Limar chain stopper, and of course a Limar swivel. None of these were on the boat when Zach used it. The actual install wasn't as bad as I thought because I had a friend make these two stainless steel plates, so all the holes and everything were already drilled. I just used them as a template to put on the bow and start drilling holes. I ended up having to fiberglass some of the other holes together. I took out the nav lights that used to be on the side and replaced it with a nav light in front on the pulpit. The stanchions on this boat, I was told, are kind of interesting because they slope slightly outward. It makes it a little bit easier to more room on the deck. The original Islanders, the stanchions are more vertical. And in fact, this past winter I rebedded all the stanchions since they were all leaking, which meant that I pulled them off, filled up the hole with fiberglass resin, re-drilled the hole, and glued them back on. I've got my little blue cover here that I put on because it's bloody hot down here in Puerto Vallarta. Wanted some shade. Intrepid has a 135 size jib and a little staysail that I use quite a bit, especially at night. It seems to balance the boat out just perfect. I did replace all the nav lighting on the top of the mast with LED, so we have an LED tricolor, an LED anchor light. We have new LED spreader lights. Did some work on the rigging. All the lines in Intrepid go back to the cockpit, so there's a gazillion pulleys all over the boat, all made by a company called Gerhauer. And I had a few when I bought the boat that were kind of in need of some tender loving care, and to my surprise, Gerhauer did it for free. The Traveler is pretty useful. Right now I've got it pulled all the way over to starboard so I can get on off the boat easy. I guess when Zach put the boat together, he put this hard dodger. I enjoy it, but then I'm kind of short. A lot of my taller friends keep walking into it and they hate it. The extra fuel that I carry, I didn't want anything on the stanchion, so what I decided to do is to actually buy off eBay these fuel container things that you'd find on a Jeep, and I just bolted them to a piece of wood, and it's tied to the side plates of the tow rail, and they work great. I could just grab the container when I need it, fill up the fuel, which is in the stern of the boat, put it back. No weight on the stanchions, and they work fantastic. This little black tube that I have, it's 4-inch PCV, and I've got a plug on one end, I've got a screw in on the other end. I find that one of those I can easily put 4 of those Coleman propane canisters in, which I use for the my propane gas grill. Looking on top, we have our 330-watt solar panels and my wind generator, and also my Wi-Fi extender, my little radio antenna. The cone back there is my satellite phone antenna, and then over here I got my chart plotter antenna and my AIS antenna. And of course the entire backstay is also one big antenna for the single sideband. Now another thing that I had done too is I put together this little hoop bimini that I can put on and take off whenever I need to. And I have all these side panels that I just throw on there to keep the sun out of my eyes. Boy, I don't know how anybody could cross an ocean without some kind of shade. Moving into the cockpit itself, fairly spacious cockpit. A lot of people are surprised that Intrepid doesn't have a wheel, but actually has a tiller, which is covered right now. But I've tried to keep this as authentic as possible to Zach's experience, right down to his hold fast. Off the back I have my monitor wind vane, which is a self-steering system, and over here this apparatus is actually where I put my offshore survival raft. We have all the lines come back to the cockpit, so this can easily be done from back here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 winches in the cockpit and 2 on the mast. Plenty of winches to do whatever I need to do. And I also have an auto helm, this little auto tiller that I can attach to the tiller itself. It's an electric autopilot. I tend to use that if I want to maintain a specific direction, and I use the wind vane, which is not electric, when I want to just maintain a point of sail. Another modification I made is for this auto helm. I've fashioned this little doohickey over here that I actually can change the length just by loosening up the screws and sliding this forward and back. And then this piece here would just slot right in, and the end would attach to the tiller. And that's my auto helm system. So, as I said, it's a trade-off with the tiller. The nice part is in harbor, I could throw the tiller up and there's plenty of room. Of course, it kind of gets in the way when you're not in the harbor. And finally, back here, I have my hot water system, and it's also where the charge controller is. When the engine's running, the fresh water pipes through the hot water tank and back to the engine, so it continuously heats up the water. If the engine's not running, I have an AC system that will likewise heat up the water. So all in all, it's a pretty self-contained little boat. You know, and it's has gone around the world once, and it's going again. Finally, up here I have another LED light that I put in, which is nice to illuminate the cockpit at night so I could actually see something. And oh yeah, there is my magma grill and the little Coleman canisters that I spoke of. Nothing like grilling in the middle of the ocean. Although I've dropped half my dinners overboard into the ocean, but I'm getting there. So there we are. That's Intrepid. Yeah, living on a 36-foot boat is the ultimate in tiny house living. Let's go downstairs, give you a little tour. This is my beloved Intrepid. Go through all the systems here, but that's my home for the next year anyways. Space is always a pain. Starting up front, we have a little quarter berth. Pretty warm because the engine's right next to it, and underway it's fairly comfortable. Speaking about the engine, I have a Yanmar 3 YM30 engine, 30 horsepower. It's a diesel, fuel injected diesel. The engine itself is located under the stairway. Pretty easy access to get to it. I've done a lot of work to it over the past winter. Replaced the fuel injectors and the high pressure pump and the fuel lines and lots of other odds and ends. It's powered by 4 6-volt AGM batteries, which are also underneath the stairway. And in fact, the stairs come out pretty easy. So with the stairs off, not only do we have our house batteries, but that's the engine. This front piece can come off pretty easily. Since I've had it, I've done a bunch of little work on it, to include rebuilding the high pressure pump, new fuel injectors, new fuel injector lines, a new raw water pump, all new hoses and belts. I got more space on the starboard side by moving the sea strainer out of the way. We reinstalled the original fuel pump. It's a mechanical fuel pump, the orange thing back there. Did a lot of work. I ended up pulling out the whatever the heck it is, where the raw water and the salt water, fresh water come together. Can't even remember now. And redid that, cleaned that off. It's always something with an engine. Pain in the neck. Now, when I bought the boat, originally it had an electric fuel pump, and that was put on as an aftermarket. I kept that, but what I did is I modified the system a little bit. The electric fuel pump is now outside in the rear lazarette. And as we go out, I have my 2 Raycor fuel filters. And over here now is the original electric fuel pump. It's just a car fuel pump. If I need to, when the engine is in the on position, I can hit the black button and the fuel pump comes on. I have a switch down here where I can divert the fuel through the fuel pump to prime it, which I think was the original idea of why they had the electric fuel pump, or I can bypass it altogether. And of course we have our Type 27 AGM starting battery down below. Pretty simple system, works real well. You know, at 2,000 RPM it burns roughly, I'd say 0.7 gallons per hour. And so that means with all my 25-gallon tank and the 35 gallons of extra fuel that I take on board on the sides in the yellow containers here, and the yellow container over here. I can run about 100 hours, or roughly about 500 nautical miles with the fuel I have. Not enough to get me across the Pacific, but certainly a big help. Intrepid's electric system is pretty beefy. We have a AC side and a DC side of the system. The AC side, of course, would be for connection to shore power. And the DC side, the bulk of that is the 4 6-volt Trojan batteries I have in series parallel. I also have a Type 27 AGM starting battery. Gives me about 440 amps workable total. In addition to that, we have a Xantrax Marine 20 inverter. So if I want to invert the DC electric into the AC electric sockets, I can do it. The brains of the whole operation is the Xantrax Link 2000 controller. And the nice thing about this is I can look at the amps I'm using. So right now we're on battery 1, which is our house battery. It's charging at 13, well, it's just gone up. Ha! I can take a look at the amps, minus 0.8 it's using right now, amp hours, minus 1.5. Where this is useful, again, is I have 440 amps. Half of that is 220. So at 220 amps minus, I'm going to start thinking about trying to recharge the system before I run out of power. Now, in addition to all this, I do have 3 130 watt Carmina solar panels and a wind generator, which goes through a flex change charge controller, and it in turn goes into some 25 amp circuit breakers and then into the whole system. I also have on board a Honda 2000 generator, and if need be I can always link up this guest 10 amp battery charger. Of course I'd have to have the generator to do so. So it seems to produce enough electricity for what I do, which isn't a heck of a lot. Oh, navigation communications. This Raymarine C70 chart plotter was here when I bought the boat. It's a little outdated, but I've updated it a tad and it seems to work fairly well, although I don't have the charts for this part of Mexico. Of course, I do carry all paper charts, especially for the trip going across the Pacific. I've got all the NOAA and French charts from Mexico all the way to Australia and New Zealand. In addition to that, I carry a Garmin newer 78SC handheld GPS. And I also have the Bad Elf GPS Pro that attaches to my iPad. So it's pretty well set up. I do have for communications, of course, the DC radio, and I have my ICOM M802 single sideband radio. Attached through it is my Pactor 7400 modem, and it's wireless, so I could actually use my computer to send and receive emails through the modem via the single sideband. Also, in addition to that, it's not as connected right now because I was having a problem with it. I do have my Wi-Fi extender in this red port optimizer, and I have an Iridium satellite phone so I can actually set up satellite links through the optimizer and download weather information and so forth that way. So it's pretty well set up for long-range communications. I've not had any problems with speaking to people. I'm a big proponent, as I said, of paper charts. And last but not least, I even have a sextant on board. I'm learning how to use the sextant, which is actually kind of fun. Oh, and the one other thing I have on here too, I forgot to mention, was my EM Track AIS. So all those little triangles, they're all boats that likewise have AIS on it. So my boat shows up as Intrepid, Whiskey Delta 13127, and I can go to all these little dots on my Raymarine C70 and figure out who they are. So for instance, if I wanted to, let's pick this guy over here. It says AIS, print, and that's the information. The boat is Ultegra, MMSI, which is the international distress number they give to your boats. Their call sign, CFK 5115, so I'm assuming that's probably Canadian, as opposed to the Whiskey Deltas, which are US. That's a real useful tool, the AIS. I think it's going to be the way of the future. You get your number, your AIS discrete MMSI number through, in the United States, through the Federal Communication Commission, the FCC. But yeah, it's cool to know who's near you and who you can talk to on the radio. Well, this is my little wonder modular water maker. I have to admit, it was a total pain in the behind to put together. The instructions stink, but this is how I ended up doing it. I had to create lots of parts. First of all, I don't have another through hole yet. I'm going to get one. So in here underneath the sink, I have the charcoal filter, and back here I have the low pressure pump, the T valve. Right now, since I don't have a dedicated through hole, what I'm going to do is just actually throw a line overboard to get the water in, and then it goes from here through the bilge and comes out in a different part of the boat. Well, here's the different part of the boat. Underneath the SETI seat, walking around, it goes into my 5 micron filter, which I have back here. And then from the 5 micron filter, if I can turn around without dying, underneath I have the high pressure boost pump and the actual water maker. And then up here I have the control panel, which was a pain to build. What I ended up doing is gluing a background back plate on it, and then just putting some wing nuts in to hold it. So everything is modular. And in fact, since I don't have an on-off switch and needed a 25 amp, I have a 25 amp circuit breaker, and that serves as my on-off switch. So I have to admit, I haven't even used it yet, but everybody tells me, oh, you need a water maker. And with these small boats, there's certainly a pain to find. So it basically goes in over there underneath the sink and comes underneath the bilge and over here underneath the seat, and then goes through the wall to the control panel, and then actually it continues back to another wall into the bathroom. And that's my water maker. I'll update you and let you know how it actually works. And here's the bilge. Pretty deep. I've got 2 bilge pumps and a Rule water alarm. That's this thing here. I hear that, I know I got way too much water. It has some leaks in it. I'm not really sure where. I'm still trying to troubleshoot. But it's also deep enough that I can stick a few 6-packs of beer or some Coke or rum in here when I'm underway. This is Intrepid's tiny kitchen area. I have my little sink where I have either a electric pressure pump putting fresh water into it, or I have a hand pump putting fresh water into it, or I have this little rule foot pedal that actually puts salt water into the sink, so if I want to try to conserve water. And of course I now have a water maker, so I have a lot of access to water. This is my little cold storage box, i.e. my refrigerator. Opens up on both sides. Just has a little cold plate in the back. The compressor actually is over here underneath the seat. That's the refrigerator compressor. Not super cold, but keeps the rum and Coke cold. Oh, and then of course my little alcohol stove. I have some storage for things behind, and behind over here as well. Definitely camping cooking. The stove I use is just an Orego 2-burner alcohol stove. It's gimbaled, which means I can move and sway. I've got these little sturdy bars that I put on. I do have the barbecue grill outside, and I actually have a Coleman stove inside here as well. I like to get rid of the oven. Quite frank, I don't bake anything. But, you know, it doesn't burn as hot perhaps as propane, but then I don't have to worry about anything blowing up on me, which is a nice thing to have in a boat, I suspect. So this is the Orego stove, and these just come out. I fill these up with alcohol basically and just light them. And as I said, it's a big sterno can, but the alcohol is easy to find anywhere on the planet, and I don't have to worry about anything blowing up, which in a boat is not all that great. And moving around, I have the bathroom, i.e. head. Probably the most complicated piece of equipment on the boat is how to use the darn thing. Just like the kitchen, it has either a pressure fresh water, that's the pump going off, or a hand pressure fresh water. The pump itself for this and the kitchen is actually down below. It's just a 12-volt water pressure pump. Showering is always an issue. I don't really shower back here. I either go on the shore or I shower on deck. One of the things I got from my V-berth that I like is this little mattress cover from Tufted Topper. It's actually pretty comfortable. They make them, you know, they're all custom made for your V-berth or whatever. It's just one piece, and otherwise I'd have all these seams that are kind of uncomfortable. But since I'm on the boat for a long period of time, I figure what the heck, I might as well have some comfort. And of course, the family from way back when, the 3 boys, Matt, Alex, Cody. Well, here's the V-berth stripped down. As you can see, I do have some more closet space and some things that need to be repaired. This kind of pulled out one day, bad seas. I have a few hatches for more space. This side I put in a bunch of extra junk, as well as my little diverter for the toilet if I ever wanted to. Yeah, it's just full of stuff. But the way this works is I actually have a small tank that if I needed to, all the stuff from the toilet would go into this tank, and then I can push it overboard. Right now it's just set to go straight overboard. This thing is another water tank, my bow tank, which is still about half full. I could actually fill it from outside, but it leaks sometimes. I think the seal might be bad. Not that you could see much, but it's still half full. And I filled that up 2 weeks ago in San Diego. And then, of course, up front, hold on, here's my anchor locker, where I store my 300 feet of chain, as well as the new windlass and stuff that I put in here. Kind of a pain in the ass, but I got it all done. Try this again with some light. I have put some modifications in the boat since Zach had it. Most notably the water maker and the windlass and all the chain. When I bought the boat, it just had, they don't call it rope, they call it road, but about 250 feet of road and 20 feet of chain, which was pretty much useless. So now it's all 5/16 inch high test chain. Better places. This is where I store my little Honda 2000 generator. It's a gas powered generator. I could plug directly into the shore power outlet on the boat and recharge the batteries if I need to. Two things I bought that I really like. One is this Mantis anchor bridle. It actually works out pretty well on the anchorage. Gives me a little more security. This is for the 5/16 chain. It's got a pretty innovative little hook at the end so it doesn't come off. And it's one of the few things I bought that was pre-made. And the other is this Davis Instrument rocker stoppers. These things are awesome. I've got 5 of them. They're just little plates. And I hang a anchor off the end. And I just drop them right off the boat, mid-boat, both sides, and it prevents me from rolling. When I was there at the anchorage in Cabo, when everybody else's boat was rolling uncontrollably, I was perfectly stationary, so I'm pretty happy with these. So if you have any questions about the boat, its systems or history or what I've done to it or what I plan to do with it, send me an email. Be happy to answer whatever questions you have. Just tim@sailboat.com. And to Zach and family, yeah, your boat's still here, dude. And it's been used by my kids up and down the West Coast and Baja several times, and I guess now it's heading across the Pacific again. So it's a sturdy little boat, and I'm going to try to maintain it in the kind of the look that you created for it, because after all, you made history in this boat, not me. Anyways, have a great time. Bye.